Okay, now we're really getting into the heart of your minimum holistic goal. In this section, you are going to create your quality of life statement. This is the one thing that I would recommend a would-be sovereign homesteader do more than anything else to prepare themselves to succeed in realizing their vision for a sovereign life and landscape. Now, before we dive in, brief disclaimer, this section of the MHG is without a doubt the most challenging. You're going to be asking yourself a lot of deeply probing questions about what you value most in your life. If you haven't done similar self-examination work before, you may even experience some blocks around this. That's okay if you do, just don't skip this step. Remember, this work is the equivalent of sharpening your saw before felling a tree. Time and effort invested here will be paid back by orders of magnitude down the line. So let's start off by describing what it is we're going to create. What is a quality of life statement? In a nutshell, your quality of life statement expresses how you want your life to be based on what you value most. If you're an individual, this will be limited to your personal desires. But in most cases, there will be more than one primary decision maker and you will be managing something jointly, be that your life as a couple, your family and homestead, or a small business, or perhaps some combination of all of those things. In these cases, the quality of life statement becomes an expression of the desires and aspirations of all the decision makers, a reflection of your shared values. Whether group or individual, your quality of life statement speaks of needs that you want to satisfy now and in the future, and also the mission you seek to accomplish in the long run. It is your collective sense of what is important and why. Your quality of life statement is a power statement. You get to choose, you get to imagine, you get to set the stage. It is written free from external input, from rules projected onto you by outside entities, free from shoulds and musts and can'ts and if-onlys. This is your depiction of how you want to see the world. What does it look like? How does it feel to wake up to a new day living in that world? To what things do you devote your precious life energy? Your quality of life statement is a direct reflection of your highest truth, brought to life by your intention and action, and described in a way that when you speak it, you literally get goosebumps and your heart starts pounding. When you find that feeling, you know you're writing something that is authentic and calling you to step courageously into the fullness of your truth. And look, I know this might sound a bit flowery or airy-fairy, the language I'm using, but I don't honestly have a better way to say it. What you write must be pure, 100% grade A, unapologetically you in order for it to be effective. It should stir your emotions and get your blood pumping. It should put a smile on your face and warmth in your heart. It should be written entirely from a place of love. It's all about creation, and love is the energy of creation. In writing this, you're going to uncover those gems that lie buried and hidden inside your being and bring them into the light of your conscious awareness. And then you're going to design, build, and grow your homestead and lifestyle from that place. So, why create a quality of life statement? Sort of hinted at some of the reasons, but let's get a little bit more concrete. Reason number one, your quality of life statement is the magnetized needle on your compass. It is the thing that will be relied upon to always point towards your true north, even during life's equivalents of a whiteout snowstorm or a dust storm where you can't see inches in front of your face. The needle on your compass will always stay true. It translates the knowing that occurs in your head into a full body feeling that emanates from your heart. And this is way more powerful than trying to think your way through all the decisions that lie ahead. If your vision just lives in your head, you're going to get overwhelmed and knocked off course much more easily. If it's rooted in your heart, your emotional and feeling center, you're going to be able to weather any turbulence along the way. The heart gives you staying power. In this way, you will use your quality of life statement to guide your life into ever greater alignment with what you value most. Your homestead will be a direct reflection of this and will be created in your image, so to speak, to support your highest aspirations for what is possible, in this case, your desired quality of life. Reason number two is if and when you find yourself off course or lost, this is how you're going to find your way back onto the path. Just rereading your quality of life statement when you're feeling a bit stressed, overwhelmed, or confused, or even when you're not, you'll find it'll help you have those, oh yeah, duh, this is what matters most kind of realizations that take a huge weight off your shoulders. Reason number three, your quality of life statement will serve as a natural attractor for the resources that you need. The right people, this is huge. These people will step forward and self-identify as wanting to work with you, support you, and otherwise play a constructive role in realizing your homestead vision. And why will they do that? Because they're going to be attracted to the clarity that you express when sharing your vision with them. These can include complementary service providers, partners, holders of invaluable knowledge and experience, all of whom will help you create. Reason number 3 is that it will reveal new possibilities and opportunities that the old you would never have seen or considered, synchronicities that are just meant to be. This will happen because you have attuned your own human supercomputer to be looking for things that support and align with your vision. This goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that this is written entirely from a place of love. This literally has a biological root to it. Go look up the reticular activating system, also known as the RAS, and see how it works if you want to know more about that or if you don't believe me. But what we're doing here is leveraging your own biology to help you succeed. And finally, reason number 4, it's foundational to creating freedom in your life. Freedom doesn't happen by accident. For freedom to exist at all, it must be grasped and exercised at the individual level. That's what this work is all about. Writing your quality of life statement will demand that you exercise mental, spiritual, and emotional muscles, not to mention literary ones, that might be a tad bit atrophied after years of living within the approved set of options that mainstream consumer-centric society deems acceptable. To live free, you're going to have to think for yourself. That's why no one else can write this but you. You've got to own it 100%. Once you've written it, the idea of not living your life this way should make you feel queasy and sick, and it'll cease to be an option. Okay, so I hope that's got you fired up to put in the work for this step. I'm feeling all hyped up, and hopefully I've managed to share some of that enthusiasm and excitement with you. Let's talk about how to write your quality of life statement. First, you want to write in the first person and present tense. That means statements like I am and we are instead of I will or we would. Why? Again, we're going at that biology here. This isn't just some semantic silliness. By writing in the first person present tense, you will be speaking to your entire physiology as if you are already living your desired quality of life, as if it is already here and you live it day to day. You want to feed your mind and heart strong action statements. I am doing X. We are building Y. Expressed as if they're happening now or have already happened, versus using wishy-washy future tense language. I will do X. We will build Y. Because these types of statements almost beg to be followed in your mind, even if you don't actually read it, by a conditional if or when, followed by some as of yet unrealized external precondition for taking action. I will do X, ... if he does Y. We will build Y, ... when we feel Z. Don't give yourself this easy out. Speaking in this iffy, non-committal language gives your personal power away. You need to speak to your subconscious with conviction, so that's why first person present tense. The statement should also encapsulate and express the reasons you're doing what you're doing, what you are about, and what you want to become. I use the word encapsulate here because you don't need to state these things directly. This shouldn't read like a shopping list. Instead, this is about writing out what your life looks and feels like when you are living out your highest truth in your daily rhythms and routines. What is the result of being in that kind of alignment? What activities do you dedicate your time to, and how does that make you feel? That is what should be in your quality of life statement. And finally, you're going to frame the content of your quality of life statement in terms of 4 main categories. That's going to be economic well-being, what's required for you to live your desired quality of life, the quality of relationships and with whom you will have them, the ways in which you will challenge yourself to grow and develop valuable skills, and finally, the contribution that you want to make to something bigger than just you and your homestead. Let's look at each of those in a bit more detail. First off, economic well-being. Economic well-being is essential for meeting basic human needs for survival. Food and water, shelter, security, health and sanitation, energy, stuff like that. How you define economic well-being will depend entirely on your circumstances and your context. Therefore, only you can describe accurately what those conditions are that must be met in order for you and your dependents to thrive. So, a guiding question for you to ask yourself and answer: what are the conditions, experiences, and things necessary for you to live a good life? These are things like good health, prosperity, leisure time, nature connection, joyous work, being in a good location, etc. Here's a tip. Express what you hope to gain from a thing rather than the thing itself. This can lead to some surprising revelations. As an example, making a lot of money isn't a very helpful thing to include in a quality of life statement. Naming what you gain from having money is. That could be physical and mental security, a comfortable and beautiful home, having plenty to eat, enough leisure time to make proactive decisions about what to do with your time, and so on. You can reference some of the quality of life statements in the PDF MHG creation guide, and you'll see real life examples of how economic well-being is woven into the fabric of the larger quality of life statement. Next, relationships. We humans are social creatures. When we feel alienated or alone, we rarely function as well as we do when we feel we belong, that we're all in this together, and that someone has our back. It is very important to ask ourselves how we need to behave with each other if we want to accomplish great things. How you interact and behave with other people will directly influence the level of trust that exists in those relationships, which then directly impacts your ability to communicate and get the right things done at the right time in the right order. Our relationships greatly influence what we're able to achieve. If you are working with other primary decision makers, you need to have a collectively shared sense of what you expect to give and receive from all of your closest relationships. Let there be no unspoken expectations, and make sure that everyone has shared what they need from everyone else in order to show up fully and do their best work. So questions you need to answer are, what kind of relationships and with whom do you need to have them to achieve all that you set out to achieve? This could be with your spouse or your blood family, chosen family, close friends, colleagues, etc. You also need to ask, what do you want to give and receive from your closest relationships? This might include things like unconditional love, understanding, a ready and willing ear, honest communication, etc. Really take the time to think about this. Ask yourself, does the way in which you currently show up for these people align with the fullest expression of your vision for what you want to achieve with them? If not, where do you need to level up? And equally important, where and how do you need to ask others to level up for you? Really take the time to think about who is playing a part in your vision, and then how you're going to be in relationship with them to make it so. Next, challenge and growth. Humans have a need to experience challenge. Without it, we fail to grow and develop. Just like a bone that never bears a load will grow weak, challenge is a necessary ingredient to fully developing our gifts and living a meaningful life. So ask yourself, where's the challenge in what you do? Think in terms of what you find stimulating, something that requires all the attention, resourcefulness, and creativity that you can muster. What kind of atmosphere, environment, and culture do you need to create to maintain everyone's enthusiasm for creating your homestead without feeling overwhelmed? Ask yourself the following guiding question: which skills do you want to develop, and what knowledge and talents do you want to enhance through your sovereign homestead journey? As an example, some off my own personal list, this included things like plant propagation, natural building, animal husbandry, aquaculture, herbal medicine, sovereign technology, parenting, playing music, singing, weaving hammocks, making decisions in groups better. There are an infinite variety of pathways for growing and developing ourselves as human beings. So list those things that you're most passionate about that really light your fire here. Think of these more in terms of general categories too, instead of listing specific techniques. You'll notice I said plant propagation as a general category versus bud grafting citrus trees. Another guiding question to ask is, what challenges you and how will you seek out that challenge? I'm not talking about deliberately making your life harder here. This is more about personal growth and expanding and deepening your skill set so that you may be of ever greater service to both your highest truth and the people you are close with, and your land and the ecology that sustains you and your people. Said another way is, how will you stay sharp? If this is starting to sound like a personal growth seminar, that's because at its core it is. In order to create a sovereign homestead, you yourself need to be constantly moving in the direction of increasing personal sovereignty in your life. Sovereign homesteading is a journey that will always demand that you continue to grow as a human, which segues very nicely into the last question you need to answer on contribution. People will give their best effort only when it has meaning for them. Meaning cannot be created by a leader and handed down to the rest of the group. It has to be a shared discovery. In other words, it needs to be co-owned, not some dictate from on high, but a universally shared ethos that speaks to the big why of why you're doing what you're doing. So ask yourself, what am I or are we contributing to the world through my or our daily efforts? What are we about? What do we want to be? What do we ultimately want to accomplish? The answers to these questions will help you discover the meaning in what you are doing and the reason for your existence as an individual, a family, a homestead, a business, or whatever. If you're writing this as a family or as a business, ask yourselves, what is it that we are able to achieve collectively that we could not achieve individually? This will help you unearth the reasons for why you are working or living together, perhaps for the first time, and certainly with more clarity. And hopefully that will help you appreciate each other all the more. Knowing that we are contributing to something greater than ourselves is a super strong motivating force. And really, it's a basic need for most people in order to feel like their lives have meaning. You could also think of contribution as the legacy that you will leave behind to those that come after you. How will your actions today and for the rest of your life create a world of increased possibility for your descendants? What will you leave behind to them? How will you be remembered? These are big questions, so take your time in writing out your answers. Find some quiet time and space and really give this work its due. You will thank yourself for it, as will your children and grandchildren. A few more tips on crafting your quality of life statement. By now, you should have a pretty complete picture of the task at hand and why I mentioned at the beginning that writing your quality of life statement is actually going to take some work. Now it's time to trust the process and do the work. Remember that in general, people want the same things. The specifics may vary, and in some cases even cause conflict. But when this does happen, always look for ways to accommodate the other person without compromising. What do I mean by that? Anyone forced to compromise on something very important to him or her will not have much commitment to achieve the larger holistic goal. Compromise is pretty much a non-starter. No one should dim their own personal light on behalf of another. This is how resentments are born and how they fester. By accommodating instead of compromising, everyone can be fully engaged, activated, and supported. Everyone can shine at full power. No one is turning down their light because of someone else. Accommodation is about creating a win-win solution. Both parties get what they need, whereas compromise is win-lose and sees the situation as zero-sum. I can't be happy unless you're unhappy. Compromise is no fun and generally based upon diminishment, doing things in a muted fashion, whereas accommodation calls you to take action to do more so you can all be more together. Next, while you're editing, take care that you don't lose the meaning of what you originally wrote. Remember, this MHG you are forming is for your own internal use. You don't have to show it to anyone else, unless you want to. So don't worry about how well it reads. All that matters is that it's 100% grade A authentically you. All that matters is that the words you put down capture how you want your life to be, that they trigger a strong positive emotional response when you read them aloud, and that it means the same thing to each person. And finally, take your time. There is no race, there is no deadline. You do need to finish, yes, but do it in a way that is right for you and your family. I recommend working to answer all questions completely and thoroughly in a single session if you can, and then take an intermission, and then come back and draft a combined paragraph or series of paragraphs that form your entire quality of life statement. When all of the pieces are put together this way, you'll start to identify redundancies as well as holes in your original statement. And then take a break. Leave it for at least a day, at least 24 hours. Come back tomorrow with a fresh set of eyes. All the work you've done will still be there on paper, and more importantly, your internal supercomputer will have been processing everything at a subconscious level for at least one night. Then read what you've got aloud and pay attention to the feelings that arise while you read it. You know, if you read a certain thing and you feel tight inside, maybe you got to look at that again. Maybe it's not quite spot on. You'll know you're right above the target when it generates a heartfelt emotional response that radiates out throughout your entire body. Tears, flushes, increased heart rate, feelings of lightness and warmth. These are all physiological signs of joy and power, literally radiating out from you into the world. That's what you're going for. When you feel that, you've just magnetized your compass needle. That's it for this section of the MHG. Go and get you to writing your quality of life statement, and I'll see you in the next video.